Virgil van Dijk has claimed that the amount he's played since recovering from a serious knee injury has now caught up with him. And it affects his form and it affects his fitness. Only 15 players in Europe's top 5 leagues have played more minutes than Virgil has since August 2021, when he returned from the anterior cruciate ligament injury that kept him on the sidelines for 10 months. And of course, he missed the Euros as a result of that. And he goes into this in a fair bit of detail. He said, "This is the life that we live. I'm very happy and blessed, but it's happening for me to be 6 weeks out and then come back to try and find rhythm and level that's expected of me, and I expect from myself. It takes time." Now, you, to be fair to you, have been on and on about this. We need to watch burnout amongst the top players. Is Van Dijk the perfect example of this?
I think it's just what he's doing, Jim, is he's explaining what it's like to come back from injury, isn't he? So he's been out for 6 weeks, and it's probably unfair of us to expect him to be back at the same level. I mean, what was commendable was he was out with a really serious injury, Jim, and he comes back from that, and he plays, 50-odd games, 63 matches they played last season, didn't they? Will there be another 10 there for the national team? That's 73 games. Usually there's a rebalance of the body after such a bad injury, and you get other niggly injuries, and he didn't have that. He went off to the World Cup, and it's probably been a bit relentless in terms of the games, and he's saying now, right, but he's coming back into a difficult situation, Jim, with a team that really does not give him the same level of protection. If you think about last season, how brilliant they were closing the ball down. He's just saying as it is. He's been careful not to go overboard. Obviously, other people in other work, Jim, working very hard and doing what they do. He knows he's in a privileged situation, but he's probably asking for a little bit more time between games. I mean, that's the argument, I think, is that the players are shouting for. Arteta was another one this week saying, well, look, we've got that in Europe now. So when you're playing a late game in midweek, why are we playing an early match on a Saturday morning, something they had to do recently against Aston Villa? So I think it's the number of hours, Jim, number of days between matches is what we need to consider.
But the more successful you are, the more games you're going to play.
Correct. This is the thing that we got at the moment. It's about sitting down, isn't it, and looking at the fixture lists, coming together to try and make it a little bit easier for the players who want to play in every game. They do. They want to play in every game. He's made that clear as well.
So you don't have a problem about the amount of games, Martin. You just want players to be able to rest longer.
Yeah, I think it's
longer.
about rest periods between matches, and then the number of fixtures. It's about competitions, Jim, as well, isn't it? Do we need to look at the League Cup? We're looking at the FA Cup already to see. There's going to be no replays at all. Perhaps next season that might come in. The League Cup, is that going to carry on and function as it does right now? These are all things we have to look at to try and minimise the number of games you're going to have to play in. But look how much the Man United players enjoyed winning the League Cup.
Oh, yeah.
And are seeing that as a pivotal point in their season. So, do you take it away? I don't think we can do that now. It's too ingrained in our system.
I mean, Simon, I know you've your own views on this. Whenever we talk player welfare about this, you are one to take Martin on about it. But, I mean, this study by the Global Footballers Union, FIFPro, said this was a matter of time. Extreme overload is going to take its toll, and they've actually highlighted Van Dijk as an example here. So, I mean, do you go with that? What Martin's saying is not the number of games. We know they've got to play more and more games the more successful they are, but rest period's got to be looked at.
Yes, in an ideal world, but no one's come up with a solution how you're going to schedule the season to be able to do that. It's all well and good telling people what you don't want to do. It's much more difficult telling people what the solution is to the problem that you've got, which is fixtures. Now, Virgil van Dijk is probably not the ideal example because he is the one that's put himself available for these games. He's the one that wants to play in these games. Most professional footballers, and we listen to lots of them in varying shapes and guises, talk about a different view to Martin's. Talk about the fact that the game after game after game was never a concern for them. The more games there is, the better it is. I'm not going to... I mean, FIFPro, I like the fan-led review. If you do a fan-led review, you're going to get the views of the fans. If you do FIFPro, they represent the players, you're going to get the views of FIFPro representing the players.
Yeah.
And the players are in this power struggle now with football, where there's a balance between the players are the entertainment and the value, but the structure of football is bigger than the players. And without the talent, you don't have the football. But without the football clubs, you don't have the players. So which one becomes more prevalent? And the reasons why there's so much football is because the economics of football have got to such a level that in order to be able to facilitate these ludicrous salaries and ludicrous cost implications of football, you now have to have these inordinate amount of games. And when you read a footballer And I'm sorry, I don't know if they believe their own words or take themselves that seriously. When you talk about a footballer that's playing a game a week, 51 games, and playing for their country as well, if that's what they choose to do. And
since when was it a game a week, by the way?
Well, 51 games over 52 weeks is a game a week.
Well, did they not get any kind of holiday?
I hadn't finished.
Yeah.
Right.
Go on then, let's
so
finish it then.
moving on to the point where you talk about sacrifices, and you look at the world that we live in, and you look at players getting paid £200,000 a week, which is 6 times what the average person in this country earns in a year. And I'm not for just making comparisons between someone that goes down a pit or someone that kicks a football, but let's get some bloody context when the word sacrifice is used in conjunction with what people are having to endure being a professional footballer. The balance is you cannot take everything out of the room. All of the money in football, with the exception of every now and again a football club getting sold and someone getting some money back, or in the situation of Chelsea just getting their money back, and expect then as a footballer to say, well, I won't do this and I won't do that. It doesn't work in the real world. It might work in the sort of the world that Martin lives in, but the real world where grown-ups are, where finances become part of the equation, it can't work.
Just to talk about grown-ups, I actually agree with that. For me, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was a love. I loved every minute of it. And if I was remunerated well, then I deserve what I got or what I didn't get. So no problem. I wouldn't use the word sacrifice. No, for me, it's a love, it's a passion, it's a vocation. It's what I want to do most of all. So that's the only thing I argue with there in that statement.
And to be fair, Martin, Van Dijk himself acknowledges it. He says, on the one hand, you got to sacrifice. I'd love to spend time with my family and my kids, but I've got to get treatment every day. Make sure I'm eating the right stuff, sleeping, doing the right things. Okay, well, that's what you do. That doesn't sound like much of a hardship to me. But then Virgil then says, that's the life we live. We're very blessed. We're very privileged. And I acknowledge that. But you still have to make these sacrifices, he finishes with. Well, we know that, Virgil. But at the same time, you admit yourselves, and you've just admitted it, Martin. You were happy to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
You didn't see it as a sacrifice.
I think actually to do it, you have to, and to survive, you have to love it, Jim. You know, you have to live, breathe, eat, sleep, football. I still adhere to that same diet now. I mean, this is that I did as a player.
It's just preposterous
because
nonsense.
it becomes as a way of life.
They go training 2 hours a day. They have a Wednesday off, right? You're talking about people.
No.
People are talking about people that get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't get home until 7 o'clock in the evening. Don't see their kids. And
Simon,
you guys play 2 games a week. You train for 2 hours a day. You eat nicely. You get your bums wiped every 5 minutes.
Maybe,
and you make sacrifices.
Maybe when
get over yourselves,
Simon. When you look back, you only had 9. If you're 10 years, you had 9 of them in the championship.
I know you want to make that point,
but
Martin,
maybe that's why, because nobody's taking Wednesday off anymore. The week works very differently.
Oh, different day then?
No, it doesn't. There's no day off, in fact.
Oh, really?
There's a Thursday training session. That's
of course
not
there's a day off.
Martin,
no, there isn't.
Rubbish.
There isn't. There
Don't
isn't.
talk rubbish.
So when you come in on the you might get a Sunday off if you're lucky. Okay, you come in on the Monday and you're switching the muscles back.
We're not going to buy
You're
this.
switching
man.
the muscles back on.
The top players get time off.
Tuesday you step things up. Wednesday's a tough session. Wednesday used to be a day off. Wednesday now is the hardest session of the week. Because they've looked at it and they realised that 2 days before a game, which is invariably the day you come in after a day off, which was Thursday, everyone's going at it. But you're then tired for the match day. So it's built up differently. So the Thursday now is a day when you don't really do much, Jim. Friday is a sharp day. But you're coming into the club. There's no day off.
Leave off, Martin.
There's no day off.
You're coming in for 2 bleeding hours.
But
what are you babbling about?
You work as hard as you can in the time
Martin,
you've got.
This is not a hardship compared to what normal people have to
Jim,
experience.
No, Simon.
That you're in a rarefied
you know
world,
that's an easy card. That's an easy card, and the
card.
lights will flash up on your screens.
Martin.
We're talking about professional
It's a
footballers.
fact.
We have to do the best they can. You want to be successful? Do you want to flog them every day? Were you happy to see the players doing 5 hours a day?
No,
it's about winning games on a match day.
No one's saying that. Let's peel back what you're saying, right? We're talking about the language that's used by people like you. And we're talking about the language that's used by people like Virgil van Dijk. You don't like the word sacrifice, but you have plenty of other things to talk about in the reality of how hard the footballer's life is and what has to be combined and how it's a labour of love. The bottom line is, it is a wonderful industry to be in. It is a privilege to be in it. The opportunities as a result of it are significant. And it seems to me that all we hear now from footballers is what they haven't got rather than what they have got. And what they want at this moment in time is to be able to tell football what it is they're prepared to do. And I don't find that particularly acceptable. And I think most rational people, nothing to do with bleeding lights lighting up on a switchboard, Martin. It just happens to be a statement of fact.
I would, if I was still,
Martin, the top players want to play.
Jim,
of that, there's no doubt. There's a typical
there's
message coming in.
There's the bottom line.
Jim, I'm listening to you this morning. These guys are top athletes. If Virgil or anybody else feels burnt out, go to the manager and say you're not up for the next game. I mean, people do recognise, these guys perform at the highest level and the demands are strong. Their demands are constant and they're tough. But you know the old phrase, if you can't stand the heat.
Jim, do you know what I would say to that? I would just say, look, if I was still playing, could you make it possible, please, that I could play in every single game? Where was Messi before the World Cup, Jim? Do you think he was playing for PSG? No, he wasn't. He was injured.
But he's 36 years of age, Martin.
I'm just giving you an example. Even Messi, whose record is exemplary in terms of fitness and in terms of being out there.
How many games
he took a period when he was down, injured before the World Cup. So everybody...
He's 36 years of age.
Well, what I'm saying is we need to make it so there's an opportunity for every player to play in every match. Can we just work on the hours between games and give the players some sort of a rest, mental rest as well as physical in the summer?
Okay, let's put it out there. I mean, should there be some kind of a limit put on the players, the potential number of appearances that a top player will make in one season? What do we put the limit at? Like a 40-game season? Is that where we're going with this? Or, as many are suggesting this morning, but I would concede to you, Martin, many who have never played the game, many who have never played the game at your level, are just saying, get on with it. You're well paid, massively well paid. Get on with it. And if you're not up to it, don't do it. There's a much sympathy out there for players at the top level when it comes to the number of games that they are being asked to play. 03717 223344 81089.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.